Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you're doing well. If you're new, a huge welcome to you. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. Out of all the channels on YouTube, you decided to come to mine, and I'm really grateful for that. I really am. Hopefully you'll get a lot of inspiration in today's tutorial because we're going to be making that gorgeous necklace that you saw in the introduction. It's a very fun and unique kind of necklace, and I made it using the beads that came in Sam's Speed box for the month of April. The name of the box was Wonderland, and it was inspired by the story Alice in Wonderland. I did an unboxing a couple of weeks ago, and as I was doing the unboxing, I got these visions of something else other than Alice in Wonderland, believe it or not. I got the idea of making something steampunkish, and if you don't know what that is, I don't blame you because it's not that common. Not a lot of people wear that style. It's definitely very unusual, but also I would say it's a little bit quirky and kind of science fiction. It usually features things like clocks, trains, compasses, airships. It's kind of difficult to explain steampunk because it's kind of like a mishmash of things. But if you put it into Google, you'll get some results and you'll see what I'm talking about. So anyway, guys, if you want to make something unique, you're in the right place because that's what we're going to do today. I'm also going to try to squeeze in a pair of earrings as well. And if you're not familiar with Sam's Speedbox, I'll leave a link to the website down below so you can go check it out. And as always, I'm going to leave a list of all the materials down below in the description section as well. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see it. And you know that I always leave timestamps in case you want to skip forward to any portion of the video. And if you like this tutorial and you think you might like my type of content, please think about subscribing to my channel because it really does help my channel and it helps me to stay motivated to create more videos for you. And if you follow my channel, you'll know that I always model my pieces at the end of the video, so stick around for that. And look who just appeared. And you probably didn't see him jump, but he jumped from the floor to the desk. He's really doing well. If he's able to jump from the floor to the desk, he's doing well. But as you can see, he's very affectionate. He always wants to be near me no matter what. He's either on my lap or near me somehow. It's just really funny. But anyway, guys, I'm very excited about today's tutorial and I can't wait to show you how to make the beautiful necklace and earring set. So let's go ahead and turn the camera around and we'll get started. And here we have Sam's bead box for the month of April. As you can see, the name of the box is Wonderland. Let's go ahead and select the beads. Now what inspired this necklace was this beautiful pendant. This one right here. It's a pocket watch pendant. It's by TerraCast. It measures 20.5 by 28.5 millimeters. And when I first saw this one, I was very inspired. So that's going to be the main part of the pendant. I am going to use one other bead to form the pendant. I'm going to use one of these. These are check glass rose focal beads. And as you can see, there are two colors. There's a jet black with white. And there's a red silk with black. I'm going to use the red one. And I love these Jasper beads. When I saw these, I couldn't resist it. I knew I had to use them. This is Dragon Blood Jasper, and these beads measure 8.3 millimeters in size. We're going to be using quite a few of these. I also want to use some of these bicones. These are Preciosa bicones. And as you can see, they're in a beautiful red garnet color. But there's actually 3 shades of red there, and I'll show you later on. And these measure 5 millimeters in size. And I want to use these faceted Hishi beads. I think these are so pretty. We're probably only going to use the red ones. And I feel bad because I love this mix. But anyway, these measure 3 by 6 millimeters in size. I do want to use one of these leaf beads. These are called feather leaf beads. As you can see, they're elongated. And they're in a green color. They measure 5 by 17 millimeters. And I don't know if we'll have time for a pair of earrings. I'm going to try to squeeze it in. If so, I'd like to use one of these maple leaves. These measure 10.5 by 13 millimeters. And I'm probably going to use the red ones. And that's it from this box. We're going to be using some wire. And this wire is by Beadsmith. I'm not particular about the brand. You can use any brand you want. But it is tarnish resistant. And I have 2 gauges here. I have 18 gauge and I have 22 gauge. And they're both silver, as you can see. And here are a few more items. We're going to be using some chain, but it's going to be a very short piece, maybe 3 inches long. And I have a lobster clasp and 2 6.5 millimeter jump rings and 2 5 millimeter jump rings. And if I do have time to make a pair of earrings, obviously we'll need some ear wire hooks, but I'll pull those out later on. So now that we've gone over the materials, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start by preparing the pendant. I have my rose focal bead and I have the pocket watch pendant. I'm going to cut myself a piece of 22 gauge wire. Let me straighten it out before I take it off the spool. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but you do want to get kinks out if you see any. I'm going to cut myself a 3-inch piece, approximately, maybe 3.5 inches. And now I'm going to form a wrap loop. So I'm going to grab the wire about 1.25 inches down, kink it, switch to this part of the wire, and I want to make the loop relatively big, so I'm going to move the wire up the pliers like this to the thicker part of the nose of the pliers. And now I'm going to take the tail and wrap it around the nose of my pliers, flip my pliers around, and continue to wrap to the back. Just like that. And now using some skinny pliers, I'm going to grab the loop, just like that, grab the tail, and do a couple of wraps. Using my flush cutters, I'm going to cut off the excess. And now I'm going to tuck in the little tail that I'm seeing right there. You don't want anything sharp. Let me just straighten out my wire a little bit more. It's going to be easier to feed it through the bead when it's straight. So now I'm going to feed it through the bead, just like that. I'm going to make another wrap loop, so I'm going to grab the wire right here at the base of the bead. Turn the bottom loop so it's lined up, kink it, switch to this part of the loop, take the tail and wrap it around the nose of my pliers, flip my pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. And before I finish it with wraps, I'm going to attach the pocket watch pendant. So let me open this loop up a little bit to make it easier. I'm going to slide it in. Let me close it up. Once again, I'm going to grab the loop with my skinny pliers. And with another set, I'm going to grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. Let me line up my loops. Snip off the excess wire. And now we need to tuck in that little tail. You don't want anything sharp. So this is what we have. I think it looks really cute. It's definitely a steampunk look. So now that we formed the pendant, we're going to move on to the next step. Let me go ahead and get the materials. As you can see, I have my Jasper beads. There's a total of 12 here. And like I said before, they're 8 millimeters in size. I also have a piece of 18 gauge wire. This piece is 7 inches long. We're going to create the bottom part of the necklace. We're going to wire wrap all these beads onto the 18 gauge wire, and we're going to form a loop at each end. By the time we curve it and do all that, it's going to be a much shorter piece. So if you want something a little bit longer, you'll have to use more beads and a longer piece of wire. It's something you'll have to figure out. So we're going to start by forming a loop at one end. I'm going to kink my wire about 1/2 inch down. Just like that. And now using some round nose pliers, I'm going to grab the end. You want to make sure it's flush. And now I'm simply going to loop it. You do want to make sure that it's nicely closed. So that's what we have so far. And now I'm going to cut myself a long piece of 22 gauge wire. It's going to be 18 inches long, but like I said earlier, it all depends on how many beads you use on the 18 gauge wire. If you use more than 12 beads, obviously you'll need a longer piece. So here's my 22 gauge wire. So I'm going to start by forming a hook at this end. just like this. And now I'm going to slide it onto the 18 gauge wire, like this. Let me just separate this a little bit. So now we're going to do a few wraps to anchor the 22 gauge wire to the 18 gauge wire. I like to use my tools for this, so I'm going to grab the wire like this. I'm grabbing the 18 gauge and the 22 gauge just like that. And now with another set, I'm going to grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. You do need to be careful because you don't want to bend the 18 gauge wire. I think I'll do a total of 3 wraps. That should be good enough. Let me cut off the excess. You definitely want to tuck in the little end if you see one. You don't want anything sharp. And you may need to straighten your wraps. Make sure they're nice and neat. Let me just turn my wire this way. I'm going to slide my wraps so they're up against that loop like this. And now we're ready to load some beads. So let me go ahead and load this one. Slide it down. Make sure that the bead is right up against the wraps. You don't want any space there at all. And now we're going to take the 22 gauge wire and wrap it around the base of that bead. And again, you don't want any spaces at all, just like that. And now we're going to wrap it around the 18 gauge wire. And I'm only going to do 1 wrap. Just like that. You could do more wraps if you wanted to, but what'll happen is that your beads will be more separated. And I don't want my beads to be separated. I want them pretty close to each other. So now let me get another bead and load it on. And now if you'll notice, the 22 gauge wire is on the opposite side, and that's what you want. So now I'm going to wrap it around that side of the bead. And again, you want to make sure you don't bend your 18 gauge wire. The best thing to do is to hold onto your beads as you do the wrapping. So this is what we have so far. Now let me go ahead and wrap it around the 18 gauge wire. You can make your adjustments as you go along. Let me just straighten my wire a little bit. Now one thing I do want to show you, when you do your wraps, you want to make sure that the wire is perfectly centered on that bead. You don't want it on the side of the bead. I hope that makes sense. Let me go ahead and load another bead. Bring it down. And now I'm going to take the wire and wrap it around this side of the bead. And now I'm going to wrap it around the 18 gauge wire. Let me just adjust my beads. And always try to keep your wires straight as you go along. So now I'm going to load another bead. Bring it down. Take my wire and wrap it around that bead. And now I'm wrapping it around the 18 gauge wire 1 time. So this is what we have so far. It's looking pretty nice. Let me go ahead and load another 2 more just like this. As you can see, I've loaded the 6 beads and it's looking pretty nice, and it looks nice from both sides. That's one of the reasons why you need to center your beads within those wraps. So now before I go any further, I'm going to load the pendant, and here it is. I'm simply going to slide it on just like that. And now I'm going to load another bead. And bring it down to where the pendant is. You want it up against the pendant like this. And now I'm going to continue doing my wraps. Make adjustments if you need to. And that's what we have so far. So now I'm going to finish loading the rest of the beads. I have 5 more that I need to load. Okay, as you can see, all my beads are on, and now I'm ready to finish off the end. I'm going to do a couple more wraps here, just to finish it off. I'll do 3 just like on the other end. So that looks pretty good. Let me cut off the excess, and now I'm going to tuck it in. Make sure my wraps are nice and neat. Make some final adjustments. And that looks pretty good. The wraps look pretty uniform. So now I'm going to form a loop at this end. I'm going to go ahead and kink my wire right where the wraps are. Cut off the excess. And now I'm going to form a loop. And again, you want to make sure you close your loop really well. You want to make sure your loops are facing the same direction. So I'm going to grab both of them like this. And now I'm going to curve my piece. I think that's good enough. Now, one thing I do want to show you, both of these loops are opening from the top side of the piece instead of the bottom side. That's what you want. I think this piece looks really attractive, and it was relatively easy to make. So now that we've completed the bottom part of the necklace, we're going to move on to the strands. Let me get the beads for that. As you can see, I have my bicones, I have my jasper beads, and I have the faceted hishi beads. And I did separate the bicones into 3 piles to show you the differences in color. I noticed that when I did the unboxing a couple of weeks ago, there's actually 3 different shades of red. There's a light shade, a medium shade, and a dark shade. And there are times when I like to mix things up, but I think today I'm going to keep it pretty uniform. And since we don't have very many of the light ones, I'm going to go ahead and remove these. We're not going to use these. We're just going to work with the dark and the medium shade of red. And I'm going to create a total of 16 components. 8 will have the jasper beads, and the other 8 will have the bicones and the hishi beads. So let me show you how I'm going to do it. I'm going to use 22 gauge wire, and I'm going to cut myself about a 12-inch piece. Here it is. Now you could work directly off the spool, but the reason I cut myself a piece of wire instead is to make it easier to film. And I'm using this technique so I don't waste too much wire. So let me show you how we're going to do this. I'm going to grab the wire about 1 inch down, maybe a little bit more, and I'm going to kink it. Switch to this part of the wire, take the tail, wrap it around the nose of the pliers, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. So now we have a loop, and I'm going to go ahead and close it with wraps. So I'm going to grab the loop with some skinny pliers, grab the tail, and do a couple of wraps. I'm going to trim off the excess wire, and of course tuck in any little end that you see. And now I'm going to thread on some beads, and I think I'm going to start with the darker ones. These are the 5mm bicones, and then a hishi bead, and another dark one. Slide it all the way down, like I'm going to grab the wire right where the bead is, line up the bottom loop, kink it, switch to this part of the wire, take the tail and wrap it around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back, and at this point we can trim off the excess to make things easier. I'm going to grab the loop with my skinny pliers, grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. Line up both loops. Trim off the excess. Tuck in the little tail. And that's the first beaded component. So now we're going to create the next beaded component and we're going to link it to this one. So let me get the wire. Once again, I'm going to grab it about 1.25 inches down, kink it, switch to this part of the wire, take the tail, wrap it around the nose of my pliers, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. So there's my loop. I'm going to open it up a little bit, slide on the beaded component, grab it with some skinny pliers, grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. Cut off the excess. Let me tuck in this end. And now we're going to thread on one of the Jasper beads. Bring it down. Grab the wire right where the bead is. Line up the bottom loop. Kink it. Take the tail and wrap it around the nose of my pliers. Flip my pliers around. Continue to wrap to the back. I'm going to cut off what I don't need. Grab the loop. Grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. Snip off the excess. And now I'm going to tuck in the little tail. Straighten my loop. And I just noticed the bottom loop doesn't line up with the top loop. So let me just grab it with another set, make sure it lines up. So this is what we have so far. And that's basically how I'm going to build my strands. But the next beaded component will have the lighter bicones. So I'm going to alternate between dark and light. So I'm starting with a dark and then a Jasper bead, and then a component with the light bicones, and then a Jasper bead, and then a component with the dark bicones, and another Jasper bead, and so forth. I hope that makes sense. You'll see in a few moments once I build both strands, and I'm going to do it off camera to save time, and I'll be right back. As you can see, I've completed both strands. Each one measures about 6 inches. You're going to have to figure out how long you want your necklace to be, but mine's going to be around 17 inches by the time I add the clasp and this bottom piece. But anyway, as you can see, I've alternated between the dark crystals and the light crystals. I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up, but there is a difference in color. So I started with 2 dark red bicones with a Hishi bead in the middle, and then a Jasper bead, and then 2 medium colored bicones with a Hishi bead in the middle, and another Jasper bead. And I continued the same pattern until I reached the length that I wanted. I am going to be attaching the clasp at this end. And even though these are 8mm size beads, I think they're going to be just fine in the back of the neck. Anything bigger than that wouldn't be comfortable, but I think 8mm is just fine. So now we're going to attach the strands to the bottom piece, and we're also going to attach some chain. Here's my piece of chain. It measures about 3 inches long. I have 2 5mm jump rings here. This is an asymmetrical necklace, so we have to do it a certain way. So let me show you how we're going to do this. I'm going to open up this loop, attach one of the strands like that, and close it. Now on this side we have to attach chain. So let me open up one of these 5mm jump rings. And I'm going to attach it to this part of the chain, to this end of the chain, like that. And now I'm going to attach it to this end of the component. And close it. So here it is attached. And now I'm going to attach this end to the pocket watch. So let me open it up. You should let it hang so it's not all twisted. And now I'm going to attach it to the loop of the pocket watch. And close it up. So here's what we have so far. I think it's adorable. So now let me open up this loop and I'll attach the other strand. And close it up. And tell me that's not cute. I think it's super cute. But we have one more embellishment to add. We're going to be adding one of the feather leaves to this end. So let me go get it. Here it is. And for this one, I'm going to actually use some 24 gauge wire. It's a little bit easier to wrap, and it should be safe enough to use on the bead. Sometimes when you use heavy gauge, it might crack the glass. So whenever you're doing wrapping on beads that have the hole drilled at the top, it's a good idea to use thinner gauge. Let me cut a piece. Let me straighten it out first before I cut it. I'm going to thread the wire through the bead like this and bend it up, both pieces, and now I'm going to cross them right at the top of the bead like this. Using my pliers, I'm going to grab it right here where the wires cross, and I'm going to kink the wire so it's pointing straight up, just like that. And this one's going to be bent this way because I'm going to be doing some wraps now. So I'm going to grab the wires like this, right where they cross. I'm going to take this one and do a couple of wraps. Let Let me snip off the excess. Tuck in the little sharp end. And now using my round nose pliers, I'm going to grab the wire right where the wraps are, kink it, switch to this part of the wire, take the tail, wrap it around the nose of my pliers, flip my pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. Let me open it up a little bit. And I'm going to slide it into this loop. I could have very easily just opened up the loop of this component, but I didn't feel like doing that again. So I'm going to do it this way. And now I'm going to grab the loop like this, grab the tail, and do some wraps. And since this wire is pretty thin, I'm going to go right over the previous wraps. Let me snip off the excess, tuck in that little end, let me show you what it looks like. This necklace definitely screams steampunk. Of course, it also fits the theme of Alice in Wonderland. So now we're going to attach the clasp. I have 2 jump rings and I have a lobster clasp. Let me open up the jump ring. I think I'll put the lobster claw clasp on this side. But it really doesn't matter because there's no front or back. It just depends on your preference and which side you want to have the chain hanging. Let me open up this jump ring now. And I'm going to connect it to this end and close it up. So there's the finished necklace. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's very unique. And I like that the beads are symmetrical, but then it has these other elements that are not. It's definitely very interesting and eye-catching. So now we're going to make a pair of earrings to match. Let me get the materials for that and I'll be right back. Here are the materials for the earrings. And yes, I'm making 2 different kinds of earrings. One's going to have the maple leaf and the other one's going to have the feather leaf. Obviously, you can have yours be the same. It doesn't really matter. Some people have a difficult time with this kind of thing. I actually do too when it comes to earrings. I like my earrings to be identical, but since the necklace is so unique, I thought I would do something different with the earrings. As you can see, I've already built 2 of the beaded components, and it's the same technique that I used when I made the strands for the necklace. They just have 2 wrap loops at each end. And as you can see, I have a bicone at the top and a jasper at the bottom. So now let me show you how we're going to do this. I have a ball head pin that I'm going to use on the maple leaf. I'm simply going to thread it through the bottom like this. And I'm going to do a wrap loop, just like we've been doing. Nothing different, guys. It's the same exact technique. Before I finish the wraps, I'm going to connect it to the bottom of this component, like that. I'm going to grab it with my skinny pliers. And then with another set, I'm going to grab the tail and do some wraps. And now let me snip off the excess. Tuck it in. So there's one earring. And now I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the feather leaf for the necklace. This is 24 gauge wire. Bring it to the center. Bend your wire up. Cross it. just like that. Kink this one up and this one to the side. Grab it with my skinny pliers, take the tail, wrap it around the post, cut off the excess, tuck in the little tail, grab the wire with my round nose pliers, right where the wraps are, kink it, switch, take the tail, wrap it around the nose of my pliers, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. And now I'm going to connect it to this component. Like that. Grab the loop with my skinny pliers, grab the tail, and do my wraps. And like I said before, since this is 24 gauge wire, you can go right over the previous wraps. And it still looks nice. Cut off the excess. Tuck it in. And now we just have to connect them to the ear wire hooks. That's pretty easy to do. I'm going to open up this loop, connect the earring, and close it up. And now let me open up this one. And connect this earring and close it up. What an adorable pair of earrings, and how whimsical. I really love it. Let me get the necklace and I'll arrange everything on my mat. Well, here's the Steampunk necklace and earring set. It's beautiful and unique at the same time. Of course, what makes it beautiful are the beads. I love the Dragon Blood Jasper beads. And what makes it unique is this pocket watch pendant. Of course, the combination of symmetry and asymmetry is very nice as well. It's very pleasing to the eye. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. As always, I'm going to go ahead and put it on and show you what it looks like. So I'll see you in a few moments. He was actually on my chair, so I had to pick him up. I had no choice. But I love having him on my lap, I really do. And he loves to be on my lap as well. So anyway, guys, I love this necklace. I really do. I think it's so unique and so different. If I were to wear this at a party or something, I know I'd get a lot of looks. How often do you see a necklace like this? Not very often at all. But anyway, guys, I would love to hear what you think about today's tutorial. If you could leave some comments down below, I'd really appreciate it. I don't always get to respond, but I read every single one of them, and I really do appreciate it. I hope I've inspired you. I hope you can go make your own necklace and earring set. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.